Welcome to the Fierce Factor podcast. I'm your host, Kaeli Lindholm. A few years ago, I took the biggest leap of my career, leaving behind my lucrative corporate management job to follow my passion and live my purpose of helping aesthetic practice owners make big leaps in their business. My journey from corporate America to entrepreneur has had its share of joys and challenges. Along the way, I've learned invaluable lessons about business, personal development, and especially myself. To succeed, I've had to embrace emotional discomfort, face my fears, and tap into what I consider my inner fierce factor. My mission for this podcast is to help business women like you overcome limiting barriers and push past your fear to achieve your own version of success. Join me as I share lessons from my own journey and learn from badass, fierce women making big moves in their careers, as well as the men who supported them. Let's go. You're listening to episode 3, Says Who, with Dr. Sabrina Fabi. Guys, I am super excited to share this amazing interview with you. I had the opportunity to get vulnerable with one of our industry thought leaders, Dr. Sabrina Fabi. She is a gorgeous and brilliant board-certified dermatologist who practices out of the world-renowned Cosmetic Laser Dermatology practice in San Diego with Doctors Goldman, Butterwick, Groff, Wu, and Bain. And you may recognize her as the medical news correspondent for Fox News. And she's also on the talk show The Gist by Allergan. She's a decorated and well-respected podium speaker, educator, and pioneer in her field. But you guys, she is so much more than we get to see on stage and TV. I had a chance to go chat with her at her office during a quick break after patients before she was heading to the news. She is a total go-getter, and I so admire how it was important for her to share her story with ambitious women following in her shoes. And Dr. Fabi's story really resonated for me. She talks a lot about lessons her parents taught her through their fierce tenacity as immigrants from Ecuador, her father coming here knowing zero English. She describes the hurdles she had to overcome getting into her dream school and reminds us that we are the owners of our destiny, saying, "You are the only person who can say no to you." Be ready to be inspired to push past limiting barriers and ask yourself the question, says who? Here's my interview with the beautiful Dr. Sabrina Fabi. So I'm here today with Dr. Sabrina Fabi in beautiful La Jolla, California, international speaker, trainer, mentor, medical correspondent. In fact, Dr. Fabi is squeezing this podcast interview in we have her for 15 minutes before she has to go on the news. And I don't think the news is going to wait for us. So thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thank you for having me.
I already gave a bit of an intro into all of your amazing accolades. I had to bring this because I literally ran out of printer paper today, printing up your CV. I was just trying to make sure, I got all the details of, all the background about Dr. Fabi and who she is and what she's done. And you guys, for those of you who are listening, I'm holding a 1/2-inch thick, double-sided document of her CV I know it's published that she has written over 100 or co-authored over 100 articles, but this looks like 1 million. So my point, Dr. Fabi, I'm so honored to be here. And you're so well known for your being a pioneer really in this industry and the things as I'm looking through some of the articles you've written, and I even just following you on Instagram, I learned so much from you. And really what this podcast is about is answering for the people like me and the women and men behind you in your field who look at you and see you on stage and winning awards and doing all these great things. But there is a woman behind all of the glitz and glam, right? And clearly, pretty much anybody that I know who has achieved a level of success that you have has experienced some sort of struggle or adversity.
Absolutely.
And so I really want to, get a little bit vulnerable with you and peel the onion back a little bit to know more about Dr. Fabi, the woman.
Okay. Fair. Yep.
Yeah. So can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you became, just decided I want to be a doctor in general?
So I'm the eldest of 2. I am the daughter to 2 immigrant parents from Ecuador. And my parents, were the first from their families to come to the United States. My father knew no no English. My mother did speak some English, and they had no greater than a high school education for my father. My mom had a little bit beyond high school, but met my father and followed him, for love. And they were able to become two very successful entrepreneurs, business owners following their passion. And I realized the hardship that they had gone through in order to make it in the United States and really live the American dream and be so far away from their family, their support, everything that was comfortable to them, to give themselves and their family a better opportunity. And so I think that was always very instilled in us to be grateful for our blessings, to be grateful for what we have, and to recognize the opportunity that we have here versus some of the Latin American countries where it is a little bit more socialistic and there isn't as great of an opportunity for everyone.
Right.
And so with that kind of just watching them, their work ethic, their constant state of gratitude for what they have, their constant passion for contributing and giving back to the society, specifically the Latino community in Chicago. That's where we grew, that's where I grew up. And just kind of making a difference, in their existence here, I think instilled in me very similar values. And so at the age of 6, I knew I wanted to be a doctor.
Wow.
And I think it came from a place of wanting to take away people's suffering. It pained me when I saw people suffer. Maybe it's because I'm an empath. I don't know. At the age of 12, I realized I wanted to be a dermatologist.
Wow.
And that's because I had suffered with childhood eczema, always got made fun of for having eczema. Kids don't understand what eczema is. Why are your legs all scratched up? Why do you have all these rashes? And then I got cystic acne. And I just think realizing the more profound effect that something so superficial can have on the overall self-esteem and confidence of someone when they're 12 and they don't have the emotional maturity or resource to be able to overcome that,
right.
Made me realize how sensitive many skin conditions can be for people. And I guess wanted to be able to take away others from ever having to go through that and being able to offer something with the ability to really empathize for what people are going through. And so I was on a mission to become a dermatologist. And that's kind of my story. Along the way, with anything, it's never easy. So it's not like I was the top student in my class. And I had I remember even in high school, I was told that I couldn't get into the University of Illinois, which is where I ended up going by a college counselor. And I ended up getting a full ride. Then I was in college and someone told me, don't even bother for medical school, take a year to do research and then try. And then I got early acceptance into my second choice for medical school. And so along the way, as with anyone, there are always going to be naysayers and people that say that you can't. And I think that that's just an opinion. It's not truth. And so recognizing that you are the only person that can really say no to you. And so it's an opinion, it's not a fact.
And do you feel like you had that instilled in you because of your parents? I feel like it would be easy for me to just kind of bag it if a counselor told me, nah, you're not going to get there, you're not good enough, you don't have the grades, how did you just didn't care? Or
I think there's a little bit of a rebellious streak in me. So if someone tells me no, it makes
we know how to motivate you now.
Yeah, if you say no to me, then for whatever reason, it makes me rebellious in that who are you to say no to someone else? I think that there's humility. Who am I to tell somebody else no? We all put our pants on the same way. So I don't think it's someone else's. Of course, there are moments and times that obviously you have to honor if someone's saying no to you, but these are counselors. They're not the admissions, committee who ultimately has the ultimate say, right? And even then, even when I got into medical school, I remember wanting to be a dermatologist because that's what I already decided. And someone telling me that I shouldn't even bother applying to dermatology because it's the most competitive field, right? And I was interviewing at one of the programs in Chicago and I only wanted to rank Chicagoland programs because at the time I was, engaged and I wanted, my family is important to me. My loved ones are important to me. And I do prioritize that. And someone told me that I wasn't passionate about dermatology if I was going to prioritize a significant other over my specialty, which I kind of find interesting because I think I've contributed a lot to our field because I am passionate about it. But I don't think that that's person's opinion. I don't think that one negates the other. I think you can be very passionate and prioritize your family. And I think that's the very fuel that allows you to be excellent in your field. So to neglect your family or to put them second or third or fourth because someone believes that that should be the culture of, a doctor in putting medicine first all the time, I think is a disservice.
Well, and I can speak too for other entrepreneurs, out there, or women or men really in the world that are trying to accomplish a lot and being told that you can't have it all. You have to pick. You can't. Right. And it's like, well, really? Says who? Why is that? That becomes a limiting belief that just society has put on us,
Yeah. So I think the biggest piece of advice is always ask, says who?
Yeah.
Who is this person to say that to me, right? Yeah. And so, needless to say, I ranked that program last. I matched into my second choice for dermatology, and I was very happy, and I was able to still, live and be with my significant other, So you can have it all. You may have to obviously sacrifice or take risks. I'm not saying that it's not without risk. I was fully aware of the risk and I was fully willing to take a year off, do more research if it meant that I would have to, to get both if I needed to.
And do you think there were advantages or disadvantages to being a female in your field?
I think that I've never really looked at, well, he's a male, he gets this, and I'm a female, and that's the reason I don't get this. Life's unfair. And it's not just if it's a male or a female. It's just what it is. I think that the faster you can come to terms with that, then I think the easier life will be because you're not living in so much resistance. And you're able to take that energy and fuel your passion, your creativity. I think that with adversity, whether it's gender-based or whether it's, geographical or whether it's socioeconomic or whatever it may be, I think that fuels creativity. And if you're creative enough, you start getting resourceful. And I think resourcefulness, all of that lends to somebody who's more resourceful if you see it as an opportunity. And I think that will lend to success.
Wow. That could be the fierce factor right there. Just, we all have our own advantages and disadvantages in the world.
All of us do.
But ultimately, we have the same opportunity. Look at your parents as an example.
Yeah, They couldn't call the school and get me in. They didn't have a buddy on the board. They didn't have, a doctor friend that could, write a letter for me. And I think I did just fine.
I think you did too. In fact, before you head to the news, speaking of this glamorous, successful person we get to see on TV, was there something that maybe helped you or inspired you along the way? Was there a mentor in your life or somebody that you really looked up to that gave you that inspiration to keep going?
I think who you surround yourself with makes a huge difference. I have been blessed to be a part of one of the best practices, I think, in the United States. And part of it was, by luck. Part of it obviously is hard work, but I chose to again leave my family, drag my significant other at the time across the country. And he was not happy about that, because I was on a mission to come to San Diego to do a fellowship at the practice that I presently work at, Cosmetic Laser Dermatology, because it was one of the few at the time. There were only, I want to say, 3 or 4 top aesthetic dermatology fellowships at the time. Today in 2020, there are over 25. At the time, there were 4 positions, and I wanted to be here. There's over, 50 lasers and devices. They do lipo, we do injectables. There was a lot of research.
Right.
And that was important to me. And so coming here, they gave me the opportunity to stay on, because if you work hard, then opportunities open.
Right. You weren't going to come here and
expect someone to spoon feed me.
Exactly.
And then be like, why didn't I get a job offer? And so I showed up, I did the best I could. I got offered a position, but I was able to work with Mitch Goldman, who has pioneered many different treatments in aesthetic dermatology, like endovenous vascular closure, the intense pulse light. Richard Fitzpatrick, my late associate, who did a lot to pioneer CO2 resurfacing, fractionated CO2 resurfacing. Kim Butterwick, who did a lot to pioneer fat transferring here in the United States. So I've been, and then I got paired with Jean Carruthers, my mentor, who is, basically the pioneer and innovator of Botox cosmetics. So I stand on the shoulders of giants, So when you have that as the people that you're kind of dealing with and working with on a daily basis, your standard is extremely high. And so something I always tell myself is that maybe it can be painful to have high expectations, but you should definitely not lower your standards. And so I'm surrounded by people at that level. So I think that that's definitely helped reflect, the person I try to aim to be.
Right. And you've set yourself up to the expectation to live at that standard as well. So last two questions. What would you tell your 20-year-old self?
I would tell her to not worry so much. I would tell her to, sometimes trust the process. And in Spanish, we have a saying, dar al tiempo tiempo. So it means, you have to give time.
Wow.
So, sometimes it's like, well, it's been 2 days. Isn't that enough? No, sometimes it's 2 years.
This could be a whole podcast on itself.
Yeah.
I love that. That's beautiful. And finally, Dr. Fabi, what does living with the fierce factor mean to you?
It means being comfortable in the uncomfortable. I think we all no one wants to feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so it's recognizing that when you're in that space, a breakthrough is about to happen. So, and I have to remind myself all the time, right? Yes. When I'm in the uncomfortable, it's unknown, it's uncharted territory. There's a bunch of fear kicking in, but recognizing that no matter what the outcome, even if it's not the outcome that I want, that I've planned, that there's going to be some growth that comes out of it.
And just putting yourself out there for that.
Yes.
Right? Wow, that's beautiful. Dr. Fabi, thank you so much for your time today. You are absolutely beautiful. If you're hearing her voice and you haven't seen her in person, where can people find you and follow you?
They can follow me at Sabrina Fabi on Instagram, Fabi, or check out our website at www.clderm.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Kaeli.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of The Fierce Factor. If you enjoyed the show, please make sure you subscribe so you can automatically get new shows every week. I'd also love it if you left us a review. And come join the conversation online. If you're an aesthetic industry owner, operator, or leader, please join my free Facebook group, The Tribe of Fierce Aesthetic Leaders, a community of ambitious, purpose-driven professionals who collaborate and share best practices for growth in business and life. I'm honored you tuned in.